The plan would invest about $50 billion in the region. It would create 1 million jobs in the West Bank and Gaza. It would take their unemployment rate from about 30% to single digits. It would reduce their poverty rate by half if it's implemented correctly. It's a 10-year plan. It would double their GDP. We've had it peer-reviewed now by about a dozen economists in a dozen countries, and we're very excited to put it forward and share it now with a lot of leading business leaders, a lot of leading investing institutions, and then also the public. Fly out to Bahrain, be a part of this discussion, and I think it's a great sign to show the Palestinian people that the world does care about seeing this work.
And of the $50 billion, how is it divided? Does it all go to the Palestinians or some other countries involved?
Yeah, more than half goes to the West Bank and Gaza, and then what we also want to do is stimulate Jordan, Egypt, and Lebanon, because if you can get that whole region starting to lift, and Israel's economy is already doing phenomenally well, but if you integrate everything and you're able to get quicker flow of goods, quicker flow of people, and then people are able to invest in education and infrastructure and all of the different areas that are necessary in industry instead of bullets and munitions and war, then I think that will really lead to a big increase in investment in the area and more jobs and better quality of life and hopefully more peace along with it.
Now, past peace plans have struggled. How is this one different?
This conflict has been going on for a very, very long time, and there's been a lot of attempts at it, which have all been, I think, very well-intended and noble attempts to try and solve it. When we got involved, we looked at all these attempts and we tried to study why they didn't work. And there's a lot of good things that were done. We tried to take all the good things they did and then come up with a new approach to try to bring this forward. We thought that the economics was a very important part. We look at what President Trump's been doing for America's economy. He's made it the strongest in the world. We're seeing incredible job creation. America's becoming more competitive, much stronger. And he did that also by studying the policies that have worked over the last years and the policies that haven't worked. And he's implemented them very rigorously. We've done is the same thing for the region, basically saying these are the things that haven't worked, these are the things that have held it back, and what we want to do is try to figure out how can we take all of the good intentions and how can we take all of the money that's being spent in the region now and try to coordinate it towards achieving better results. And so we have a very extensive economic plan, and then we have a very extensive political plan. Again, I find that in the real world, the way you solve problems is by really going into the details, putting forward proposals, agreeing, disagreeing on certain things. That's very healthy. That's how you resolve a conflict. Remember, nobody agrees up until right before they do, so it's not unexpected for people to posture and to criticize things. But what we're hoping to do is create a framework where we can change the discussion and get people to look at these problems differently and more granularly, and hopefully in a way that can lead to some breakthroughs.
Should we view this as a Marshall Plan type proposal?
So our intention wasn't to set out to do that, though a lot of people who have peer-reviewed it have said that it does resemble the Marshall Plan. I've been reading more about the Marshall Plan, and one of the things that they did very successfully was they didn't just give aid, they infused money into the private sector, and they created an environment where businesses can thrive, capital could be invested, capital was actually excited to go and invest in those areas, and that led to increased productivity, increased GDP, increased wages, and better quality of life for a lot of the people. This is a similar notion where you're not just giving people fish like we've been doing here for a long time, you're teaching them to fish, and then you're buying them fishing rods and you're helping them become something that will be much more sustainable, because the current status quo is not a sustainable situation. We have a lot of different proposals for how to stimulate a lot of different areas. We have over 100 different project proposals, but ones that will all have to be approved by the host countries that they're in. People are tired of the way that this has been stuck in the mud for so long, and what we're hoping we can do is get people to look at this a little bit differently, come together, share ideas, and then hopefully we can create a framework on which to move forward economically. But I will say that you can't push the economic plan forward without resolving the political issues as well, and we're fully aware of that, and we intend to address that at a later time. There'll be criticism from some places. Hopefully it will be constructive. I always prefer having people share what they're for as opposed to what they're against, and if people have constructive criticism, we'll welcome it and we'll try to make modifications. But the hope is that we can bring all of the different people together from Europe, from Asia, from the Middle East.
Have you considered a situation where there is not sufficient interest in this economic plan?
We're proud to put it out there. It's been peer-reviewed extensively, and I think that it'll be something that'll be good. Whether it's executable, will really depend. A big part of what we're talking about is what are the security issues that'll be handled in the political plan necessary for capital to come in, but also what are the governance issues that people need. You need to pronounce property rights, you need rule of law, you need different things that will enable a lot of these world-class institutions that will be at this conference to be interested in actually investing capital in these areas.
And at what point do you release the political plan? Does it hinge on the success of the economic conference?
No, when we're ready. Again, that's something we've been working on now for 2 years. It's a very extensive document, something that I do think will, again, make people look at this a little bit differently and hopefully bring people to the table to start having a discussion about how to resolve these long-standing issues. But that's a separate topic, and we'll deal with it at a later date.
And does that hinge on Prime Minister Netanyahu forming a coalition government?
We'll see what happens.
Some critics say you're trying to make an economic peace without telling people what the political peace would involve. Now, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I would say that the political side and the economic side are two very robust efforts, and to digest both of them at one time would be very, very hard. So it was necessary, I think, to break them up. So the question is, which one do you put first? Our thought was that it was better to put the economic plan first. It's less controversial. Let's let people study it, give feedback. Let's try to finalize if we can all agree on what that could look like in the event of a peace agreement. And then what we'll do is we'll move forward. But I will say that any peace agreement won't stand if people don't have an exciting future to look to after. So what we need to show people is that for a lot of years, the unifying notion, the Arab world, has been blaming all of their ills internally on Israel. And what we want to show people is that if we resolve issues with Israel, a lot of the opportunities that the leaders can provide to their people from within will hopefully give people a more hopeful outlook. Palestinian leadership knows that our intentions are not as they're being portrayed. President Trump cares about them. The whole notion here is that we want people to agree on the plan, and then we'll have a discussion with people to see who's interested in potentially doing what. But the notion here is that we don't want to reward efforts, we want to reward results. And whatever money is invested should be given based on having benchmarks and changes and progress, and it shouldn't just be based on, let's just give it away.
But President Trump is willing to donate some money to this cause, the U.S. government.
Look, President Trump's been very generous with Israel. He's been very generous with Jordan. He's been very generous with Egypt. Those are great national security partnerships that we have with all three of those places. He has said that if there is a deal, he would be interested in looking at opportunities. But again, he wants to make sure that the money that he's giving is representing American interests and is done in a way that benefits our country and is done in a way where it's being used efficiently and effectively. And he's done a big review of all of our foreign aid, and he's making sure that we're being much smarter about how we spend that money. People realize that the real threat to that region is Iran and their aggression, and Israel and a lot of the other Arab states have a lot more in common today than they did before. I think they all want to see prosperity for their citizens and safety for their citizens, and resolving this conflict is a necessary step towards removing a chasm that exists right now that can hopefully lead to a much more prosperous situation for all people. So again, we're very, very appreciative to Bahrain for hosting this, and we're very appreciative to all of our partners in the region for giving us a lot of input and for making sure that they're sending delegations and to helping us shape something that hopefully can lead to a breakthrough in a problem that's been a very, very hard problem for a long time. But we view our job as to try. It's very easy to find reasons why this could fail. We think about that all the time, but our job is to try to be more optimistic and to come up with situations that could maybe change the paradigm. And I hope that by seeing this plan that we've spent a lot of time working on for a better economic future for the Palestinian people and for the region, people will start to look at this problem through a slightly different lens, and maybe that leads to some badly needed breakthroughs.
Thank you, Jerry Kushner.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Great.